Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about the Hay Literature Festival and show you the books that I bought. The Hay Literature Festival ran at the very end of May. It's a 2-week festival and I went on the bank holiday weekend. I camped for the first time in like 10 years, just for 2 nights. I didn't love the experience because I really am quite scared of spiders, and obviously camping is kind of a bug-filled experience. We arrived on Friday night for Robin's cousin's talk. She is Dolly Alderton and she has her book Everything I Know About Love, which is amazing. I recommend you go read it. Her talk was really good, so if you ever hear her on the radio or doing any talk, I definitely listen to her because it's really interesting. And then Saturday was like the first proper day of the festival, so we properly like saw the tent. And it's just so beautiful there. Like, it's all based on this little town called Hay-on-Wye, which is known as like the town of books. It has bookshops everywhere. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to look around any of them because we were so busy with talks and stuff, and the Hay Festival is like probably a 10-15 minute walk away from the centre of town, so you couldn't really like pop into town and back if you had like an hour or two spare. So we pretty much stayed at the Hay Festival site the whole time. But there was like loads of cute little shops. There was a huge food hall with loads of choice. There was an amazing bookshop which I spent quite a lot of time in, and it was just an amazing experience. After seeing Dolly on Friday night, one of our first talks on Saturday was for Ian McEwan. I was really excited to go to this talk, even though I've actually only read one of his books. I read his book Enduring Love for A-level and I absolutely adored it. So since then I've been buying a lot of his books but not actually reading them. I think I probably own at least 5 of his books, and I haven't actually got around to reading any of them yet, which is a real shame. He was mainly there promoting On Chesil Beach because it's just been made into a film, which I still haven't seen yet, but I really want to. I had an old ratty edition of this book which I did get signed, but I also bought this new edition because I just really love the cover. I think it's gorgeous. In his talk he spoke about a lot of really interesting things about sort of how he got into writing, his sort of advice, how he's kind of gone through different phases in his writing style of what he likes writing about, like more unusual stuff and then more realistic content, and he's kind of going back to his roots of kind of doing more wacky stories with Nutshell that came out fairly recently, that's all about narrated from the perspective of Hamlet in the womb, which is just really interesting. I didn't know how much of a thing book signings were going to be at the festival, so I took a few to get signed, but I didn't really take like all of my Ian McEwan books because I didn't want to carry them around with me all day. I didn't quite know how it worked, but after every talk the author would go to the bookshop and you could buy like their books there and get them signed. So in a way I wish I took more, but I did get 3 books signed by him. I got Enduring Love signed, which was really nice. Signature there. On Chesil Beach signed. And then I picked up one of his books in this new edition, which I don't really like, but you know, called Black Dogs, because someone asked him a question, what's your favourite book? And he said it changes every day, but he said Black Dogs on that day. And I did say to him, oh, this book's nearly sold out because it didn't have that many copies, and he said he should probably say in different talks what his favourite book is just to boost the sales of that one. So now I have all 3 books signed by him, which is really nice, and I have a lot more by him, and it's really kind of made me want to pick up his books a lot more. He seemed like a really nice, lovely man, and at the end they talked about how someone he worked with, I don't know if it was his editor, but she had died, I think, of cancer, and they'd kind of done an award in her name because she worked in publishing, so they awarded a young writer that award at the end, and she read a little bit from her story and she got like a prize, and hopefully her book will be published. But then the next one was Jacqueline Wilson, which was really exciting. Me and my boyfriend Robin were probably the youngest people in the queue without any children. It was pretty much aimed at children, but it was really nice. She wasn't necessarily like directly interviewed, she just sort of sat on stage and talked for an hour, which was really nice. Again, she talked about kind of how she got into writing, and they had a lot of time for questions at the end, so kids got to ask her lots of questions and she answered them really lovely, and it was just adorable because she's Jacqueline Wilson, like I've loved her since I was a kid. But I have a lot of her books recently because Amy got me a really nice box set for Christmas of loads of her kind of most famous books, so I did pick up Jackie Daydream while I was there because this one's a little bit more autobiographical, and I hadn't never read it, and I have a signed book plate because she didn't do a signing, but they were giving away book plates if you bought one of her books, so I managed to nab one of those, which I'm really happy with. Then one of the talks I was probably the most excited for over the weekend was Simon Armitage, and I was a little bit disappointed with his talk in a way because it wasn't an interview like some of the others were, because I really like that interview format to find out more about them, but it was basically a lecture all about Bob Dylan winning the Nobel Prize for Literature and kind of analysing his songs in terms of literature and kind of evaluating like did he deserve to win the Nobel Prize for Literature as a songwriter. So it was really interesting. It was kind of a surreal experience to have a lecture by Simon Armitage, because obviously that's just incredible. He does teach at Oxford University, but it was a little bit disappointing because I kind of just wanted to know more about him and his writing process, things like that. So I did take a few books by him to be signed. So I took these three: Selected Poetry, Seeing Stars, and his new one, The Unaccompanied. So I did take these because they're a lot smaller. I thought it was easier to carry around. But yeah, his signature's super small, so they all look like that, just kind of too Laura. Then he kind of scribbles over his name, and so on. I won't necessarily show you them all because they're all the same. And while I was there, I also bought 2 of his books. So I have Cloud Cuckoo Land, which honestly I was drawn to because I work for a place called Cloud Call, and it had cloud, and our logo colour scheme is purple, things like that, so I was kind of drawn to it. But actually it sounds really interesting. This is based around 88 poems where each one takes its title from one of the constellations, but they're not all kind of concerned with astronomy and more about the poet's mind. So it just seems like a really lovely collection, and when I was kind of browsing through it, they were all quite small, but I just thought, I've never heard of this one before, so I was very excited to see this. And then I picked up Paper Aeroplane, which is just again some selected poems. It's almost like a best of, so it's kind of, it was nice to get this signed because it's probably the one I'll refer to more because it's kind of the best poems out of lots of different selections. I was randomly flicking through this in the queue, kind of just while I was waiting to pay for the book, and I literally just opened it to this random page. I don't think it has a title, you can see there, but it's actually a poem about a school shooting, so I sort of dogged it because it's amazing that this was published years ago, and this poem I think was about 20 years ago, about one of the first ever school shootings that happened. So reading this was really, really amazing. Just really upsetting that these issues are still so relevant even after all this time. But yeah, just reading that poem reminded me why he's such an amazing poet, and I was really touched by that poem in particular. We did go to a few talks where I didn't get anything signed. We also went to the talk on Mary Shelley by Fiona Sampson. She does have a book out all about Mary Shelley, but because I studied the Romantics a lot at university, I wrote essays on Mary Shelley. I didn't buy the book because I feel like I kind of know everything in it. Like, her lecture was really, really enjoyable, but I felt like I knew everything it had to say, so didn't get her book, but I would really recommend it if you're interested in Frankenstein or Mary Shelley, because she read snippets of it and it was really, really interesting. I also went to a talk with my boyfriend Robin called Robin Ince, and he was talking with some guy that does like kids books at a sciencey. I wasn't interested in that. It was the last talk of the weekend, so we all just sort of stuck together, me, him and his mum, and went to that talk, and that was mainly for him because he really likes Robin Ince. I wasn't personally interested in it. Also, right at the end of the festival, we didn't go to Juno Dawson's talk because we thought we would want to head off earlier on Monday night than we did. So unfortunately we didn't go to her talk, but she was there signing in the bookshop, so I kind of thought, oh well, you know, I haven't read any of her books, I'll let the queue go down, and if I'm still here then I'll grab them. And luckily I was, so I grabbed 2 of her books. The first one is Agenda Games, which I believe is a non-fiction book all about possibly her journey as a transgender woman, but I don't know if it's just about trans issues in general. But yeah, I've been wanting this for a while and waiting for it to come out in paperback. I feel like I'll learn a lot from this book, which is always great. There's her signature there, to Laura, all my love. She was really, really lovely, very, very friendly, and I'd love to go to one of her talks in the future. And then I also picked up her book Margot and Me, which I think was released last year. I didn't pick up her new book Clean because I'm just not as interested in it. And it's unusual for me to be interested in historical fiction, to be fair, but I'll kind of get onto that in a second. But yeah, I don't really know anything about this, but I've heard it's good, so I got it. So part of the reason I bought a fair few World War II books while I was there because we went to Michael Morpurgo's talk, and I had read like 1 or 2 of his books as a kid, but I never grew up with him. We mainly went because, again, my boyfriend Robin really loved his writing as a kid, and I still thought it'd be interesting to hear from such a famous author. But honestly, his talk was incredible. It was one of the most moving experiences I had of the whole weekend. He just spoke with such sincerity, and he explained himself so well, and he answered questions so well. Honestly, it was just an amazing experience. He spoke about why he decided to write his new book Flamingo Boy, where I believe either the main character or one of the main characters is autistic, and his grandson, I think it is autistic. And the way he spoke about that was really, really moving. And he spoke about where he got his inspiration for this book, which again was really, really interesting. He has such an amazing way of speaking that I thought, well, if he can speak like this, his writing must be incredible. He spoke really passionately about growing up in the aftermath of the war and the effect that had on him, and why he continues to return to that topic and write about it, because he just thinks it's so important to both remember the horrors of the war and kind of commemorate the people who risk their lives, but also just not forget that it happened and kind of keep it in our memories, which was really beautiful. He spoke a lot about why he writes about animals, because he thinks they're just incredible creatures and we abuse them too frequently, but we couldn't live without them and they have such an impact on us. So again, that was really amazing, and a lot of kids asked him questions and he would just give them so much attention. Like, he would walk across the stage, look them directly in the eye, he said like, I want to see you, where are you, and he would ask them their name, and he would just like really engage with them. It wasn't kind of that typical interview experience of just sitting there and being like, oh yeah, you know, generally looking in the direction. He made that child feel important, which was just beautiful. And a child asked him how he got so good at writing, and he turned it around about, well, you're just so good at reading, like I couldn't write without readers who can imagine my stories and make them come to life. And that was just such a beautiful sentiment to kind of sum up the whole festival, and it was just incredible. There were so many amazing moments from it. Next, I wish I vlogged it. I did plan to, hopefully next time I will. I'd love to go next year. I think we're already talking about it because it was just incredible, and I would really recommend it to anyone who lives in the UK because it's well worth it. Just bear in mind, everywhere gets booked up way in advance, so you're probably going to have to camp. So I hope you enjoyed this little discussion and haul all about the Hay Literature Festival. Let me know if you've ever been, or any other kind of literature festivals, and how they compare, because I really do love them. It's just amazing being surrounded by people who all love reading, and you know you could talk to anyone and kind of have a good conversation with them. And yeah, it was just an incredible weekend. I loved it so much. See you all on the next video. Bye!